Let me start, sir, by asking for your perspective on COVID-19 pandemic ravaging the world. Does it remind you of your days as governor of Lagos State when you had to handle the Ebola pandemic at that time, sir?
I think that I like to start by expressing my very deep condolence to people who have succumbed to the virus in a fatal way, who have lost their lives. May their souls rest in peace. My sympathies also to their families and loved ones. It's been a very, very trying way, very, very uncharted way, really, to separate from loved ones. And then to give my very, very deep appreciation to all of those who are battling to ensure that we successfully manage the impact of the virus, from President Muhammadu Buhari to all the governors, the ministers in the Presidential Task Force, the health commissioners and other health workers in various parts of Nigeria and beyond. The task really is one that I do not envy. And this is where perhaps I can then frontally ask your questions. There's the similarities between what I assume that they must be facing and what we went through during the period when Ebola broke out. But I think it is also important to say to Nigerians, we were better equipped with information at the time Ebola broke out. The Ebola virus had been under observation and study, especially in East and Central Africa, for over 40 years. So there was a lot of knowledge about its parameters, what to expect, what not to expect. And it was with that information and knowledge that we were able to respond. Those who are battling coronavirus today have only 6 months knowledge of this virus. The knowledge is only 6 months old. So the parameters of what to look for are constantly changing. So in the beginning, we thought that temperature was a gold standard, that everybody who had it will have a temperature. We now know better that some people will have no symptoms at all. So some people lose sense of taste, they lose their sense of smell, some people have a headache, some people don't. So I know that there are many scientists in the lab today doing a lot of research, from pathology work, taking samples from those who have been infected, those who have died, trying to really study and understand. So what to do for now is to follow the best known advice: wear a mask once you are outside your home, keep the social distance of no less than 6 feet, because the virus has no legs. We transport. If we do that, we will help the health workers and the frontline workers reduce their workload and be able to then lead us safely out of this pandemic.
Thank you very much, sir. What have you been up to in this your second term, sir, as minister, with 2 critical portfolios? Do you miss the Ministry of Power, which is to be part of the 3 ministries you handled?
Well, the second question asking me is like asking me if I miss being governor. I don't. It's a job, and every job, what I bring to the table is to deploy to the fullest all my energies, and is also to deploy to the fullest all the skills that God has given me. And once I'm done, I don't look back. In terms of what we are doing now, we are executing our mandate as defined by the president and the government. As Nigerians might recall, we had a 2-day retreat when we were inaugurated last year. And during that retreat, each ministry had clear mandates, had clear objectives, and targets set for for their ministries. And you might recall that sometime, I think, early this year or late last year, my ministry presented our report card about what we had been doing since we assumed. All ministries have been doing so in weekly cabinet meetings. In fact, just this week, this Wednesday, it was the Ministry of Police Affairs and the Ministry of Internal Affairs who presented their report card in terms of their mandate. So all of us are racing very, very valiantly towards achieving our mandate. And you will see from the president's speech yesterday, some of the report cards, performance levels from target to now were highlighted in some parts of his speech, running across different sectors of the economy. So that's what we've been doing essentially. It's been challenging. It hasn't been easy, I must say. Resource has been a major challenge, as Nigerians well now know. But against those odds, we soldier on.
Okay, sir. What's the state of the National Housing Project, sir? Are we still on course?
Well, yes, we are on course. We are on course. What we started in 2016 was to attempt to define what type of a house Nigerians will accept to live in and what type of a house they could reasonably expected to afford. You might also recall that I attended one of your events in
Yes,
Lagos, where I broadly set out where we are going. And why we were concerned about what type of house was that we learned from experience of the previous national housing scheme during the Shagari era that not everybody liked the way the Shagari houses were built. And whilst it was a laudable initiative by that administration, it did not really respond fully to all the aspirations of Nigerians in terms of type of house that they wanted to live in. Specifically, let me share with you what we found out, that there were cultural differences, as we all know, in Nigeria, and they impact how people live and the type of house that they will live in. The terrain in the country is also not the same across board. Neither is the land availability equally proportioned. So in the southern part of Nigeria, for example, the land areas are not as vast as in the north. And therefore, it is sensible to build vertically up than to build horizontally to the side. The land use in northern Nigeria allows for building horizontally to the side. So you will see people have a preference for bungalows. Even those bungalows, whether it's 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom, they usually have a way they like it built because of their cultural way of life. They like a courtyard at the back of the house. And so this was a result of our survey in 2016 that then led to the initiation of the National Housing Project you now talk about. Again, we know that the federal government owns very limited land. Even the land that it owns is given to her by the states. So the states are the ones who control the land. And therefore, we had to apply to all the state governors to kindly give us land. And we decided to ask for only 5 hectares to demonstrate whether or not people will accept those houses. I can tell you today that in all the 34 states who gave us land in the first phase, we have completed the houses. We have now started a second phase in many of those houses close to where the first phase was. I visited a couple of them, the one in Delta in Asaba recently, just before the pandemic stopped our ability to travel. I visited, I believe, the one in Niger, and I visited the one in Cross River, and a couple of others like that. And if you go to our ministry's Twitter handle, at FMW, you will see progress reports and progress photos of what is going on in those places. But let me say, if you permit me, that our housing strategy using the National Housing Program is only one of many things that is happening. The Federal Mortgage Bank, one of our parastatals, is also intervening by financing estate development, estate developers by granting them loans. So the Federal Housing Authority is also building houses. And all of these programs and projects are vividly captured on the ministry's website. But beyond building houses, we also have site and service schemes. There are people who don't want government to build for them, but they like to have the security of government-issued land. So we have a couple of site and service schemes in many parts of the country where we provide infrastructure, electricity, water supply, access routes, and then people build their plots. We are also intervening. Some people don't want government to build, they don't want government land, they just want a loan. So Federal Mortgage is also issuing loans. And in the last 4 or 5 years, Federal Mortgage has issued out, I think, about 38 billion naira in loans to over 5,000 people. Then there are the house. Then look, there's no nice way to say this, but let me say it. All over the world, the truism is that not everybody will be able to own a home, but they deserve some kind of shelter. So some people have to rent. So Federal Mortgage Bank also provides what it calls home renovation loan. This helps some people subsidize their rent, renovate their houses, and so on and so forth. We're also intervening in the housing sector by issuing title documents. So we're issuing certificates of occupancy. I have signed over 3,400 COOs in the last 2 years. We're also granting consent to land transactions. So there's a lot that the federal government is doing, but it will not be enough if all the states do not involve in doing this, and if our conversation does not capture what they are doing. I know that state governments are building. I know that they also have loans and all types of things. I know that they are issuing certificates. So the discussion about Nigeria's housing performance is an incomplete picture if it doesn't take into consideration what the states are doing and also what the private sector is doing. And I know that on many TV platforms now we are seeing people advertising one home project or one house, and this is how really an economy gets underway. And I am happy to say that those private development projects are thriving at this time. And I'm happy to say that they are thriving because of our economic policies and our policy outlook.